Hey everyone, and welcome back. I want to give you some very quick tips on how to build great sitemaps and not get stuck in the process. This may seem overwhelming, but it is really easy to pull off. So one of the big tips I always give people is don't think about two things at one time. If you're working on a sitemap, you don't want to start thinking about where to put things while you're also thinking about what things to put. Keep it simple. Focus on one thing at a time and you'll make way more thoughtful decisions. So when we were thinking about some of these types of pages, it's great to start thinking of this content strategy. I love to, but we're not going that deep just yet. We're touching the first layer and then, we're digging deeper and deeper gradually. The second tip I'd like to give is to bring in your user flows. Now, your user flows should indicate the types of pages you need and where they may fit within the structure of your app. So I mentioned, search not necessarily being an actual link, but this user flow is something that we already had thought of. We know that there's some sort of intermittent overlay where they're searching and then they go to the search results and then they get to the page. So we already had an understanding of that model and that flow. So definitely use your user flows and your sketches. Now, speaking about sketching, tools. Now you can definitely start with sketching, but once you start to revise, move it over into an online tool like Figma. It's great to see those structure maps that you can build, but ultimately this is where you're going to refine everything and move forward. I think another thing that people don't think about is colors. You don't need to go crazy with colors. Just because it's a sitemap, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have colors. I like to use colors to highlight things like screens that are maybe visible to certain users, like we have here with member-only links and public links. It also makes your sitemap much easier to just remember instead of thinking of it as a black and white set of cards. That's super boring. And I think the last thing, and this is it, don't aim for perfection. Things are going to change. You just want to set yourself up for success and give yourself the best chance possible to succeed. You're never going to get it perfect. I've seen things like this thrown out later in the process when there's some sort of large product pivot. I need you to remember that once you have a good idea of what your product structure is going to look like, move on to your wireframes, dig deeper, and test some of those assumptions that you're making here, because these are a lot of assumptions. This is just giving us a nice little bit of a plan to move forward. Your sitemap's not going to answer all the questions, but it will give you that starting point for your wireframes. So remember, be lean,